I have to place my thumbs up in a very small space here.
Yes.
Thumbs up to Paul. Thumbs up, Paul, everybody.
Yeah. Yes. All right. How do I
looks
make
like
my
we're
iPads?
live.
I think we probably are.
As Blake
Hi,
adjusts
everybody.
the chair. A chair's got to be in the perfect place, doesn't it?
All right. Let's see. Everything's making noise. Okay.
We're talking. Stop saying it's noise. It's like really rude as the host.
Sorry.
What is
Am
all
I
the
the host?
chattering?
Guess I'm the host.
Stop making noise.
Oh, you know,
Mute.
now that we're all live here, do we have a gift idea?
I would leave that to the host. Who's the host, Paul? See if I got anything bookmarked.
Let's see. Okay, good thing that we went live.
We're live and then look for this. We'll get to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah,
Let's make some sausage.
maybe a good gift idea would be where is it? The
The gift of silence.
replacement PLA for a Commodore 64.
Looks like I got nothing.
Yeah, I don't.
Let's see.
Oh wait, I do.
Norton
have
Antivirus
I
version
have
1.
I have one.
Excellent.
It's actually from an item of interest that I have. There is a book associated about Prince of Persia,
Oh, okay.
Oh, Prince of Persia. So masterful.
and it's a book that has been out for a while, actually. But there's a new hardcover version that has
For fancy people.
additional graphics
yeah.
and stuff.
I think I know what you're talking about. It's the journals or whatever, right?
Yeah, which there was a software version that came out in like 2011, but there's a new version being released now. There's hardcover, and it's apparently has more visuals.
Cool.
I picked up the new video talking about some new details. I'm sure one of you saw it, like
Yeah,
3 days ago.
Yeah, I think that's in the list.
It's in the list.
Oh, okay.
It's in item
Breaking
of
the
interest.
RAM limit or something. Yeah.
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 Okay. Are we ready?
Yep.
Am I ready? I don't know. Probably not. Okay. Have to be able to read. I never think of. All right. Here we go. It's March 22nd, 2020, and welcome to episode 210 of the Retrocomputing Roundtable. The RCR is a podcast about retro computer news, nostalgia, collecting, and staying inside with your retro computing collection. So I'm Paul Hagstrom in Boston, and I am joined by several stay-at-home retro computing enthusiasts. So clockwise around the image that I see, we have Earl Evans in Portland. How are you?
Hey there, Paul. I'm doing okay. I'm trying to adapt to the crazy, just like everyone is.
Yeah. And Carrington Vanston from Toronto. How are you?
The crazy will adapt to me. I'm doing fine.
That's right.
I've been socially distancing since high school, so not a lot has changed in my lifestyle.
All right. And Blake Patterson from, what did you say, Northern Virginia?
Northern Virginia, that's right. And I also started social distancing rather early. But yes, home for a week and staying sane. And yeah.
Yep. We are all old pros at this. It's like Jack Nutting in Stockholm.
That's right. Introverts of the world, stay home.
That's right. Anyway, yeah. So that's been pretty exciting times trying to deal with all of this. I'm sure we will have a chance to talk about that probably as our closing shots as well.
Right.
But so we thought that what might be actually a kind of interesting topic to talk about is computer viruses. Seems vaguely timely.
Topic viruses are a topic that's in the air today.
That's right.
Viruses are in the air. What?
So there's many things that we could talk about, but like what experiences did you have in the retro computer era that we talk about with computer viruses, related malware? Which ones do you remember? Were there any that caused a particularly memorable headache? Any that you wrote? Any that had interesting technology?
Anybody want to admit to a big one?
Did you write any antivirus software, or did you write any antivirus software to eliminate a virus that you wrote? Anyway, yeah, there's all kinds of things, but I think I have various things that I could say about this, but I will not start. Earl, maybe you can start, being in clockwise from me.
Sure. I think my first recollection with viruses was on a PC network. We were very happy in the aerospace company that I worked at that we were early adopters of networking, enabled us to have some competitive advantage, share files, share printers, reduce costs, that kind of thing. But unfortunately, one of the things we discovered is you can also easily transmit malware. I remember the first malware that we encountered. I don't remember what it was called, but we detected it with some software that I believe was called Virex. You guys remember anything called Virex?
Yep.
So unfortunately, the virus got introduced to the network by the Novell NetWare administrator, the supervisor on the network. So that account had basically total privileges to everybody's file shares and everything. So once he introduced it, it went crazy throughout the network. Got on individual PCs, on hard drives, yada, yada. It took us quite a while to clear it. And I remember kind of thinking, this feels like sort of a new world. I mean, I remember people doing malevolent things on computers before. Usually they were just joking around. You know, they'd put up some sort of a funny launch screen or mess around with your autoexec.bat, you know, just prankster type stuff. But this actually cost us a lot of productivity, and it wasn't good. We did get it cleared out. We did get it stomped out, but it took a while. I remember being kind of unhappy about that.
Yeah, there was a point when viruses stopped being fun.
Yeah, I mean, originally I'd heard about viruses spreading around on floppies, but they didn't go nearly as fast when you were talking about SneakerNet. But when it got on the network, man, boom.
Yeah, not cool. Carrington, did you have any entrepreneurial adventures with viruses?
Nope. Oh, one time a company, I mean, I was an Apple II user, like for kind of the early years, and then became a Mac user. And so I smugly used to always say, "Oh, Macs don't have viruses." Yeah, I was so wrong. And so nothing much has changed. But that was I flew that flag a lot. Super fortunate. I've had no real personal experience with getting viruses, doing stuff on my own software. So yay for that, or on my own hardware. And also at work, both my family businesses and places I've worked, never had to deal with anything like that. So just mostly through luck, to be honest. I have no idea how I've dodged all those bullets. The only time I've had to deal with it really was other people's computers. So, you know, extended family and friends was like, "Oh, I've got this thing all over my Windows PC." I'm like, "What? Okay." And then it becomes my problem. So I've had to deal with other people's viruses, like all tech nerds do. We have everybody's problem becomes our problem. So deal with a lot of that on Windows machines. Mac stuff, the only thing I ever really encountered personally was some HyperTalk viruses. HyperCard viruses. Like, so those used to be prevalent and really not that hard to get rid of. And so there were lots of those, and particularly the NVIR A and B ones, which would say, there was one of them that would say "Don't panic," like on your computer every once in a while, like randomly, if you had Macintalk installed, it would say "Don't panic." So dealt with that one. Company that I was doing some small software development for just got a bunch of small viruses in like their HyperCard stacks. And so I had to get rid of those for them. But it was like a 10-minute thing. Like it really was, I really haven't had any issues with this. The one that I remember most of all was kind of famously, there was one called Independence Day, where it was a Mac virus that I kept hearing people would get, but I never encountered it personally. And I had no idea whether it was like as big as it was, or everyone just found it hilarious because it was spelled wrong. Like Independence Day, the independence was spelled incorrectly. And it was one of these things that was a virus trying to delete things. It was trying to be a really malicious virus, but famously, it was so poorly coded, it couldn't actually do anything. It was totally benign, so it could spread itself, but everything it would try to do would fail at because it was just written so badly and spelled wrong. So it's like my favorite virus, but almost unfortunately, I never personally encountered it. So that's the one I'd want to get if I got one, is that hilariously bad Independence Day one. But really don't have a personal history with them. I've been super lucky to socially distance myself computer-wise from all the viruses. Yay.
So a question for you. There were HyperCard viruses?
Yes, oh yeah, like, tons. Because HyperCard was so easy to code, and you could write little scripts that would, if you opened one stack, it would have little programs in it, and stacks could write code into other stacks. Like you could say, hey, save this image or this bit of text into the background of this other stack. And so often what they do is try to write to the home stack, because they would assume you've got a home stack, you've installed HyperCard, is probably in the place where everyone, so you would know that stack exists. So you would try to write code that would just write itself a little program into the background of the home stack. And then if somebody opened the home stack, it would then execute. So that's technically a virus. And then it would try to write things in other stacks. So that's kind of how they spread. But also they were super easy to get rid of for the most part, because they were just scripts.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I worked with a couple of really large Macintosh networks, and we never encountered those. That's fascinating. I could see how that could be a thing.
Yeah, it was really easy to write scripts that would then write to other things. And so super simple virus writing. But Independence Day is better than that. It's awesome.
Let me introduce an edit point to just check. Earl, you sound like you're talking through your computer microphone. Is that what you intended?
It isn't. Really?
No. Well, I wrote a virus that disables his microphone.
You know what? Let's not hold up the show, but I'll look at which microphone that
call it
StreamYard is using.
Okay, and it's mainly if your local one is working. That's the main thing. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, my Audacity, I'm pretty sure, is recording from a Yeti.
The audacity of you, Earl.
But
my Audacity knows no bounds.
All right. Well, you guys carry on. Talk amongst yourselves.
Okay. Right. Blake, have you run across any next viruses or anything?
No next viruses. That's true. I don't have a really exciting story to tell. You'd think I might, given the different platforms I've moved through. I think I never had I went so quickly from one to the other in the early 80s that I never had time to really
other people got your viruses.
Feel a virus. Yeah.
The virus never jumped from one to the other.
I think the first, they never, incompatible operating systems, it keeps itself safe. There's a benefit for you. But on the Amiga, I guess I had a Amiga 2000 for a few years. People in the user group, I was in a user group, were having some virus issues, disks getting wiped and things like that. So that's the first time I started running a regular virus protector on the desktop, and it was something called Virus X, a little small program that just set in the menu bar. And I know, as far as I know, I mean, it didn't. I didn't have any virus issues. I don't know if it protected it or not. It's like the banana in the ear that kept the gorilla out of my backyard.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's. I'm not sure. One thing it was interesting. I had real-time clock issues on that Amiga 2000, and I couldn't figure out why. It would keep time sometimes, and then like a few days later, it would lose time, and I'd set it again, and it would stay different periods of time. And I looked it up, and there was a clock chip virus for the Amiga. The Amiga has a little bit of a memory store, some kind of
that's crazy
ROM kind of thing, where it stored certain just bytes of information, but there was a virus that could get in that clock, the clock memory. And I thought that's what it was, but no, it turns out that the solder point was loose. Oh. The battery. So it was a soldering virus. And I guess
that's less interesting, to be honest.
But, yeah, I know. I was hoping it was the clock virus, but
we were all hoping.
Yeah, but maybe I can see if I can set that up. I'll see if I can
get it now.
Acquire.
It'd be pretty hilarious if you give yourself a virus on air during the show. Let me show you that worked. Oh darn.
Yeah, that's scary. But the I know. I remember in the college we had a Sun lab. There was an HP lab and a Sun lab, and primarily I worked in the Sun labs doing projects and things like that. And there was some kind of a virus that came through that would hit a certain SPARC processor, and it would put it into a certain loop that would cause it to physically melt. And so there were several servers where the CPU cores were physically destroyed by a malicious, I don't know if it was technically a virus. It was a malicious program that was masquerading as something else. I guess it was a virus, but I think there were 3 machines at great expense that were destroyed.
Wow, that is a hardcore payload.
Yeah. I didn't really believe that was possible, but when I looked into it, there was some sort of.
Sure, you could like disable a fan and then just run a thing like crazy, like especially check like that it's sitting idle and it's 2 a.m. or whatever, and just like crank it and let's heat this thing till exhaust.
Well, if you could turn that fan off, but yeah, I think it did some kind of a loop where it just wouldn't. The safeguard mechanism, for voltage level, just didn't foresee that, and they corrected obviously in the next chip. But the last thing I'll say is that the most virus headache I've ever had is helping my mother-in-law to not purchase several times a year the McAfee virus pack.
Oh my gosh, yes.
System on Windows 10. Like we set her up, and it comes up. Would you like to order? You're going to run out in 11 months of this subscription, and I think she purchased four times. She purchased the suite, the $60 suite of.
That is their entire business plan. Is just
the best thing I ever did. The biggest virus solution I ever did was to uninstall McAfee on her Windows 10 PC, and then just never look back. And so she's never mentioned viruses. She's never had one. So yeah, that was my most painful virus experience.
Yeah. A lot of antivirus software is virus.
It is the McAfee. Yeah. So
I think the same problem at work. We'll have staff every once in a while say, "Oh, things were running slow, so I installed that Mac cleaner thing." I'm like, "What are you doing? I'm taking away all your privileges. You don't get a password anymore. Oh my gosh, you don't get a keyboard anymore. What you can do with the mouse, that's what you're gonna have." Crazy how many times I've had to uninstall that stupid thing from people's computers.
There's very few. There's a few out there. I think you can, install them. They'll do something. Get them out of there. Okay. Now I checked for viruses, but yeah, the things like McAfee, I mean, they're worse, I think, than a virus itself. So as far as I'm concerned,
strong agree.
The cure.
Anyway, so that's it for me. That's it for me.
Hey, can I ask you guys? Does this sound any better?
Nope.
No.
About the same.
You're audible. But I brought the mic closer. This is
tap on the mic.
No, I think
it's frustrating.
Yeah, tap on the.
Yeah, the mic you're moving is the mic I can hear the. Yeah, that's your mic.
It.
Yep. Maybe it just echo in the room.
Yeah,
if I turn my mic around, you'd see pillows, because I have a room full of echoes. I have to lay a quilt down below me and put pillows, and it's still echoing like crazy. Man.
Okay, I am in a smaller room this time. I had to move around because of the
smaller rooms are generally better.
Things that are going on here. Echo chamber.
That's what you get, man.
All right, you guys are just going to have to deal with it.
People will get their money's worth.
Sorry,
almost.
We can hear what you're saying.
Be fine.
Yep. And the editing is taken care of some other time. So
yeah, other people do the editing. That's not our problem.
Take care of it in post.
Take care of it, Paul.
Yes.
So what about you, Jack? Have you had any virus attacks or defenses?
Not much, and especially not in the retro days. I do remember on the Amiga, I think I also ran that Virus X program because I was I had so many pirated games and such that I had, and I had a hard drive that there was a concern that if I got some floppy from a friend or a friend and it had some virus on it that would actually impact something on my hard drive. I didn't want that. But prior to that, every computer that I had was such a minority platform, the Atari 8-bits, the Atari ST, and
who's going to bother writing anything for that?
Exactly. And then after that, then I went on to be working in Next Step for a number of years. And that's also such a small platform that nobody's writing viruses for that. And then I went from Next Step to Mac OS 10, which again, in 2000 especially when it was new, barely anybody even wanted to use it, let alone write a virus for that.
It's the world's slowest virus.
I don't think today there's many viruses for Mac OS.
I don't think so either. I think it's still people want to get the most bang for their buck when it comes to if they're going to make a virus, you want to make it for the majority platform, which on the desktop is still Windows. So my only virus experiences that were troublesome at all were really in work life, but kind of late on, say 1999, 2000. I remember working at a place where, we had an internet connection, didn't have much of a firewall or anything because it was still early days, and we were, I guess we were a little bit naive. I think most companies and universities were pretty naive early on. And at some point, something happened, and there was some kind of Windows virus that would reach out across networks and try and infect things through something. I remember there was one day that everybody who was running Windows suddenly all had this virus at the office, and these weren't the developers; these were all sort of the finance people and the people doing the accounting.
Oh, they're the
books
worst
and stuff. They were the worst, and they were freaking out, and we had to fix it. But
Yeah. I know the modern day, like the guys that are running, and I, of course, am one. I have one of these systems down by my left leg, but the modern PowerPC Amiga OS 4.0 people that are still pushing hard with modern Amigas, their biggest hope and dream is that someone will write a new virus targeting their platform. That's everyone. Has there ever been? Has anyone?
It'll validate you.
Anyone
write a passage?
Anyone
noticed us?
Got bitten? So, one day, hopefully, there'll be a new Amiga virus. But
I can't say. I think of the thing that protected me from having to deal with a ton of viruses, to be honest, is my age. Because as a young kid, I pirated everything. I mean, just every game I used was just, I don't know how I got it. But it was I'm old enough that was before hard drives. So it was 5 1/4-inch floppy disks with tons of games on them that I got from any old source anywhere, and BBSs and just like crazy stuff that I didn't even think about it, and it just wasn't an issue. And then by the time I moved to computers with hard drives, I was old enough that I could afford to buy software now. And I've aged out of wanting to have 10,000 games that I wouldn't play that I just put on everything. So honestly, that's what protected me. It was by no means intelligence or ability. It was strictly because I'm as old as the hills, and so I just avoided it.
Yeah, once you turn off the power switch, you finish playing a game on your Apple II Plus, you turn the power off, and now we're move on to the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really the reason I ducked the bullet.
Yeah.
Because if I had that same methodology, but I was born 10 years older, and so instead of doing that all through the late 70s and early 80s, I did it through the late 80s and into the 90s, I would have got every virus everywhere. So I shouldn't really be smug about it.
Yeah, it does sort of seem like the viruses, I said that sort of jokingly before, but I mean, the viruses used to be kind of fun. It was it was like a little technology demo. Like, it's an interesting idea. Like, how can you get this to replicate itself?
Right.
And make a little funny message somewhere. And
there was that Mac Mag magazine, or Mac Mag virus. Do you guys remember that one? Which was like written by one person, but the responsibility was like I think in the UK, Mac Mag, they wrote a virus for their staff intentional that would pop up at a certain date and say, the name of the president, like Richard Brandon says, "Merry Christmas, and we're spreading the message of peace to everybody from all the staff of Mac Mag." I'm like, you're writing a virus to promote your magazine? It was like the weirdest thing. And it was supposed to delete itself on a certain day. But again, I think did damage because it had coding errors. I mean, I swear viruses do more problems because of errors in their code than intentional things.
Possibly.
Yeah. I know it's actually sort of interesting to creatively think about like where you can hide them, how you can make them persist. So like those there were like CDEV viruses or something that would,
remember those? Yep.
That like when you booted up a system software disk, it would quickly run all your control panels or whatever, and sort of in completely unprotected way. So, I remember those were moving around in the Mac labs at college. But yeah, I think it's true that in the floppy-based world, it is a little bit harder to have them spread. So I know a lot of them would patch DOS. So that, like, if you're using a sort of normal unprotected DOS, they would, and then you went to go catalog a different disk, it would quickly like write itself into the boot sectors of that disk.
Cool. That's creative.
Yeah, I did. I experimented with this a little bit. I never released any.
Sure, you didn't.
But I did like write through some little things to like a little thing in the boot sector of an Apple II disk that would count down, a certain number of times that you could boot it before it would then, just format the disk or something. but there's a fun sort of engineering challenge to try to like, squish this into a couple of little bytes, here and there around the memory. But yeah, I think it's possible that viruses, in fact, are one of the things that keep me from, like, even maybe beyond, ethics and morality, keep me from pirating anything. Because everything has an actual malicious intent. It's trying to make your computer into a whatever botnet.
Yep.
So
yeah, and that's the thing is, I say I never had an experience with viruses, really, but I could be just straight, like, they could be all over. I could be totally the center of a botnet and just not realize it. I don't think so. I think I'm aware of my network traffic, but who knows?
Yeah.
One thing I guess I'll mention, I thinking about it now is listening to you guys talk. When I was, I guess, mainly at this one job I had in like the late 90s. I was a developer. My first dev job actually. But anyway, that was at like 98, 99, 2000. That was when you remember the I guess there's still a thing, but the Microsoft Word macro viruses.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't like a straight up, assembly coded virus of extreme cleverness. It was more someone is going to, go in and look at all your email addresses and send out, garbage emails. Those were hitting the office, and I didn't care so much because it really wasn't my personal problem. But yeah, we would see those come in and warn, don't open the email. But yeah. And I guess the modern version of that is phishing emails today, which are more like malicious, not in the same way, but heavily warned about that in the current workplace. And you see those emails. So,
And I still struggle to keep my family, I keep my parents from believing everything that comes, and they try every metaphor ever. And it's like, how could you possibly think that was okay to how many times have I said you don't click on links in your, what do I have to do to protect you? It's very hard to protect my family from my family.
Yeah, the thing that is just this makes me want to, I don't know, whatever, tear my hair out or whatever, is that then you will get an actual bank sending you an actual email that says, click on this link to
what are you doing?
Do this thing.
I don't even want to bank with you if you're that stupid.
Yeah, because I mean I know it's not a phishing email. I can see evidence of it, when I log in, but
still.
It's irresponsible.
And it's not even an age thing, because my nephew, who's way younger than me, also probably the worst person in my family when it comes to tech. I'm like, oh my God, anyone's going to get virus. It's that kid. It's like, so I originally thought it would be like, well, eventually everyone who doesn't understand this stuff will simply age out and die and the world will be safe from viruses. Nope. Young people are just as stupid as old people. We're all dumb. Or maybe it's just my bloodline. I don't know. There's a good chance it's the latter.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think if there's any other. I probably did tell this before. There's one thing that I think is kind of like virus related, which I was very pleased about. I'm sure I told it before because of this, but it was kind of like a computer lab prank that I perpetrated in junior high. But we had all of the Apple II. It was an Apple IIe lab, so there was probably 25, 30 machines or something in there. They were all connected to network drive. So it's like I think it might have been 20 entire megabytes of Corpus drive that they were connected to.
Oh my gosh, I've experienced with exactly that. Corpus drive shared over network. Like, oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah,
like, it's cool. I can relate hard to that.
And so there were a couple of us, there were I think 3 of us that were sort of like the computer nerds, and we each got our own volume on this. So it was divided into a whole bunch of volumes, and everybody could access everything, but I was supposed to put my stuff on my volume. So, but so the thing I did was basically like there was a kind of like a login screen that you would type in some code, it would run something on the Corvus drive. So I think there were various like educational games and things. But what I did was made a little mock-up of the login screen that would poll my volume to see if like if a file existed on it or something, and then like when the file existed, then they would all start beeping, so that I could just make the whole. Actually, it wasn't even beeping; it was like a super high pitched noise. It was like the highest pitched noise an Apple II could make. So
nice.
It was it was kind of fun to like be able to go and walk up to one of the computers, type in like the magic thing on the login screen, and have them all start like making noise.
Oh, the sense of power.
But not really a virus. I did. Oh yeah. So the Apple II thing. I did write up some text files about like my writing of these. Like the boot counter and stuff like that. And I once saw an eBay auction with somebody who had a disc in their miscellaneous discs that had it on it.
Oh, nice.
like that's interesting. I don't even know if I have a copy of that.
That's cool. Wow. When you say a boot counter, it sounds very Canadian. I was like, wow, talk about relating to that one.
All right. Anyway, all right. It's possible that we've exhausted the computer virus topic for now, but it's possible that we'll still be talking about it
as viruses do.
Months and months.
I think we have flattened the curve.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I have a couple of listener feedback things. The first one is, well, they're both just news things, but anyway. So Brian on Facebook wrote something which I thought was, pointed something out I thought was interesting. It's the PLA 20V8, which is a cheap PLA replacement for a Commodore 64. He says he's made a few of them, and they've worked on every C64 he's tried. And there's a link to how you put this together, and there's a video made by the person who put it together, sort of talking about it. Earl, what does the PLA do? It's some sort of video-related thing, I believe. Do you know what this is that they're replacing?
I don't think it's a video-related thing. I don't know exactly all the functions that it does in the Commodore 64, but there's actually, I don't know if the video that you're talking about is the one that I saw recently from Adrian's Digital Basement.
That's it, yeah.
That's a perfect video to watch if you want to know not only what the PLA does, but how you can build yourself one of these really cheap replacements. And I mean, they're very inexpensive compared to some of the alternatives. There are alternatives out there because the PLA is one of the chips in the C64 that fails frequently. It's a very common failure mode. And so people have been looking for a modern way to replace this. And not only is this new modern replacement that uses GAL chips cheap, but it's also extremely compatible. They threw some different tests at it, and you can see that in this video, that they throw a couple cartridges at it that are known to really have edge case issues with the PLA, and it works just perfectly. So I'm very impressed with this.
Yeah, it seemed like it. And I think if you make enough of them, and enough of them is like 10 or something like that, then they wind up being something like $3 each. I mean, like it's really like, it's unreal how cheap these are.
I'm going to see if I can trade Adrian something here in town because he's here in Portland with me.
Oh, okay.
I have a question. What the heck's a PLA? I know I'm a software guy, but I don't even know this term.
Does it stand for Programmable Logic Array? I think it does.
I will believe you if you say it does.
I think that's
But
what it stands for.
so it's a chip?
It's a chip, right?
Okay.
It's a piece of hardware, and
Like, is it a C64 only thing, or does every computer? Like, I don't know why I don't know this term.
I don't know to what extent they're used today, but one of their big deals was that they were programmable.
I know it is like in a chip, a PLA is, pull accumulator from stack.
yeah.
It's like, that's what I think.
No.
What the heck is PLA as a chip?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know this. So it's a chip in the C64 that is prone to fail, is what you're telling me, and so then this is a cheap replacement.
That's right.
Okay.
All those things are true. And PLAs in general, I'm not sure what their overall success was. They were interesting because they were programmable, but the ones that they put in the Commodore, I think they were just trying to solve some technical issues by using one of these chips. And I don't think the one that's in the Commodore is programmable. I think it's, already pre-programmed. You can't reprogram it, for instance, if you have one, but the replacements that people are making can be reprogrammed. They can be reflashed. And I think you actually see that happening in this video that we're talking about. So think like, a CPLD or an FPGA or something like that, but I think a previous version of it.
Yeah, I'm thinking it seems FPGA-like, and I'm now reading about it on Wikipedia, and I remember having to do these kind of schematics, input and output things using ands and ors so people would learn gate logic. I just don't remember the term PLA or being a chip. Though, my degree's a long time ago. I forgot most of it.
So how does that differ from like a PROM? I mean, isn't that the same thing? Like it's once programmable read-only memory, or is this doing something more than just being memory?
It must be doing something other than being a ROM. I'm just theorizing here, but
or Commodore people just want their own word for things.
Well, does the did you find out that it really does stand for Programmable Logic Array?
Programmable Logic Array, kind of programmable logic device used.
If that's the case, that implies to me that more than just a ROM, it actually has the capability to do some programmable things. Like a ROM, you can say, hey, at this address, you read this value. But a programmable logic array could actually run little mini programs inside it.
Yeah.
So like probably given a set of inputs, it will produce an output.
Yeah, it just seems to be a whole bunch of gates that you can program. Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody out there in Listenerville is probably screaming at their
that is the experience of listening to our podcast, is mostly just waiting for your turn to scream at your headphones.
It's an hour and a half to 2 hours.
That's what we deliver.
Just screaming, but it's cathartic.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's our gift to you, the more knowledgeable listener.
Yeah, but it does seem like it's a Commodore 64 specific piece that commonly fails, and this is a cheaper replacement than the many others that have been made before.
Cool.
So it's a cheap piece of a Commodore 64 that fails, but we're going to focus on this one part of it versus just, the whole thing.
Mr. Facetious Man, there are...
I fully intend what I'm saying.
There are other cheap pieces of Commodore that fail, and they've been looking for replacements for those too. You should check it out. It's actually kind of interesting. I mean, pretty soon I think you've got a Frankenstein where you've got a bunch of chips in there that aren't the originals, but the thing still runs. So we've talked about this before on the RCR, where at what point does it stop being a Commodore or an Atari or an Apple or something like that and start being like a modern computer that just acts like an old computer?
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was feedback. There's another piece of feedback that I thought was interesting too. This one, Jason posted this on Facebook about a project that he'd planned to present, I think, at VCF East, which didn't happen. But I think it's just now, just as I'm speaking, not happening. But at any rate, it's basically a little program written in BASIC that lets you interact with the Atari 6502 processor in kind of a visual way. And so he's put this on atariprojects.org, and so you can take a look at it. But I think it's kind of cool. Basically, you pick an instruction and it runs a little bit of code that uses that instruction. And, it's supposed to kind of like, I think, be kind of like an exercise in BASIC, but also, it can get you used to at least these opcodes that it displays here. So it reminds me a little bit of something called the Visual 6502 that I've seen on Apple computers, at least. I think there's a similar one on PCs as well. Mm-hmm. The Visual, whatever that is, whatever's in PCs. But it's neat. It's a neat project, and it's a good way to sort of deal with the fact that VCF East isn't happening to present it at.
Right. It looks pretty neat. Yeah, it shows like what's in the X, Y, and A registers and what's in the current RAM that's being dealt with somehow. It's neat. I'll have to give this thing a try.
Yes, there's a copy and pastable program that you can paste into your computer. You need a fancier BASIC though. You need Altera or Basic XL.
Yep, you need Basic XL.
Yeah. So
cool.
Okay, and then if there's more feedback, I'll talk about it next time.
Sure. Has everybody given us their first jobs? Anybody online who hasn't had a chance to discuss that yet before we move on to
that's a good
items
point.
of interest and such?
I think we have all done this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have to get Michael here.
Yeah. Give me the hot seat.
But okay, so now we can move to our items of interest and news.
Very distinct section.
Yep. Carrington,
all the parts of this show are very distinct.
That's true.
Very distinct. 8-Bit Weapon, a very fun independent music band that does a lot of kind of music you would think from a band called 8-Bit Weapon, like computer organized stuff. Back in October, they released a dual album called Disassembly Language that was Commodore 64 music, so generated on Commodore 64 for relaxation. The idea was you can chill out to it. So it's chill music created on a Commodore 64, and that came out in October. Well, since the world is going insane and it's the end of civilization and all of that, they're like, you know what? It's time for everybody to relax. And so what they've done is now that music is free. So if you've not checked out 8-Bit Weapon, and you should because they're actually fun band and make good music, you can get both of those albums now for free on Bandcamp if you head over to the 8-Bit Weapon site, which is just 8bitweapon.com, and we'll have a link in the show notes. So both Disassembly Language Volumes 1 and 2 are now released completely for free. So you can check them out and enjoy their music guilt-free and probably virus-free. Who knows? But download it and take your chances. Anyway, they put up a post recently called Relax, It's On Us, free C64 ambient music. And so both albums are now available for free. Hooray for them. Good band. I like them. They're fun.
Nice. Yeah, I have a few different 8-bit weapon albums, and I think the one I listen to most is an interesting one not too long ago released called Class Apples.
Class Apples, that's what I was going to say. That's my favorite of theirs as well.
Yeah, they use Apple IIs, not with sound cards, but the Apple II itself in a very unusual way. I know Charles Mangan assisted in the, on the technical side to getting the Apple IIs to work. It's kind of fascinating. But they're classical tunes, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart.
Yeah, super fun. I like them. They're a good creative band that does neat things. Hooray for supporting independent music. And so you can support them by taking their stuff for free now. But then maybe you'll like it and buy another album. So we'll see. So anyway, that is my bit of news to contribute.
That is really cool of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of people are doing that. Lots of games and stuff are available for free right now on itch.io or whatever and Steam. Like there's so many things that are currently 100% off.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yep.
I have so many games in my backlog of games to play. We could be quarantined for 5 years and I would still be like, I never got through everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of other discounts. Like I saw, and again, don't quote me on the nature or
I'm tweeting
whatever
you
the situation with this is, but I know, like I heard that for several months you can get access to, I think, Adobe Creative Cloud for free for people that might need to take a different step.
The key to remember with those is I use that stuff for work all the time, but it's all very proprietary file format. So you want to make sure you export everything as PDF or whatever, because once it ends, you're like, hey, I got all these things in Illustrator format or in design. It's like, too bad, sucker, keep paying.
Yep. Yeah. Lots of sales though. Lots of sales. Yep. Yeah, which is nice to see.
I'm really interested to listen to that 8-Bit Weapon album that you're talking about, because a lot of the music that you'll find on the Commodore 64 is really hyper. I mean, it's definitely not something to relax to. I guess that's just, part of the culture, the demo culture. Very upbeat, very busy. So listening to something that's a little bit more chill coming out of the SID chip is going to be interesting.
Yeah, I remember when they announced it, I think we talked about it back in October when it first came out. They called it mind debugging tones, so your neural network could chill out. So, they're like I said, a good band, well worth supporting.
Cool. I think actually Volume 1 of that came out a couple of years ago.
Oh, really? Okay. My mind it was like last October. Maybe
maybe
second
Volume 2 came out very recently.
Okay, that's
probably the thing.
Mm.
But
because I remember talking about it. Yeah.
Right. But I remember listening to Volume 1 because it's on Spotify too. I remember listening to it a bit a couple of years ago, and it is very it's not at all like you think of like chiptune music,
Yeah, which is normally pretty aggressive. Like go.
Nope.
Drink your Jolt. Play your games.
Pretty soothing. It's nice.
Cool. Everything's soothing if you slow it down enough.
Right. That's what I say.
Yeah, I know a lot of people will listen to podcasts and things at double speed, just in order to be able to consume more. And
I say challenge accepted. Listen to my podcast at double speed. Go.
But it's and actually I do find I do this myself a fair amount, and I do find that the brain adjusts pretty quickly. But what I was going to say is that try listening at half speed. Everybody's going to sound entirely drunk.
That's right. Everybody sounds drunk. It's so hilarious.
I'm not drunk. I'm just at half speed.
That's right.
What are you talking about, officer?
All right, Jack. The Apple news continues
Apple news
with Jack.
So,
mine was C64 news, surprisingly.
There's a cool story on Ars Technica. They have their series called War Stories. They have a little interview with Jordan Mechner about how he created Prince of Persia. And it was pretty neat. Like, I never knew any of these details. Maybe some of you did. But there's a 20-something minute video on YouTube where he's talking through things and demonstrating how he created the characters and the struggles he had with fitting things into the RAM of the Apple II, this sort of thing. Very interesting and very entertaining. And there's an article on Ars Technica about this, and there's it's pretty cool. He actually saved his journals from when he was working on this, so that's why he has like a pretty clear memory and can refer back to those for the details. And so he used a kind of rotoscoping for the character animations. So he had so the prince is Jordan Mechner's brother, who videotaped him running along a sidewalk and jumping over things and stuff. He took the videotape, and then he would go through it frame by frame, freeze frame it, take a photo of it, and then get the photos all developed. And then from the photos, he would do an overlay of just like black and white of character and background. And then he used something, I forget what it was called, some tool that let him take a frame from a video camera, a solid frame, and import it as a bitmap into the Apple II. So it's kind of like a multiple step thing to get these animations of his brother into the game. But it worked, obviously. And that was the basis for. And he also mentioned that a similar technique was used for when he made Karateka earlier, and that was that he had his karate teacher stand and do poses and do kicks and punches and stuff, and recorded all that. So anyway, pretty neat. Well worth checking out.
There's in the Ars Technica article, it was talking about something that I hadn't heard before. About busting through the memory, like the memory limitations, trying to do something like Prince of Persia, which is just a masterpiece, and trying to get that to like fit on an Apple II. And originally the game was going to be designed that there's no sword fights, none of that. It was just going to be like basically a maze you have to jump through. So there'll be the platforms and the chompers, those amazing chompers. And that was it. And you just had to make your way through this to rescue the princess. Alas, there's the theme. And there was this sudden idea, I guess, from a person that was in the same office he's working with, and they came up with the idea of bit shifting. So then you can take there's the one character they had, like our prince, and by just doing bit shifting, now you have another character. So you just reverse it, bit shifting. Okay, now, because there wasn't enough room, there weren't graphics left to be able to have an enemy. But instead, now you can have an enemy, because by just bit shifting it, like that gives you enough different looking character. You use all the same animations, just reversing it, and bingo, now you have people you can fight. And that idea just suddenly opened it up to be a game that is now not as he says, a completely solitary experience. Instead, you're going to have to go fight a bunch of bad guys, which is a big part of the game, that sword fighting. So pretty amazing.
Yeah, he said that. He also said that like opening up that actually set the tone for the game, because it became more story driven, because suddenly there is a bad guy that is bugging you and stuff, and someone in the office is like, oh, make the bad guy appear when he jumps through a mirror, and then that's when Shadow Man appears.
Oh,
so
Shadow Man.
That kind of set. It went from a game that was just kind of like a technical demo of I can run around and jump and climb and fall and all these things, to being a thing where suddenly I have a new element that influenced how the game evolved.
Yeah. That was one of those all-time great moments. There's certain games I've played that like you just have a moment in the game that is incredible. And that's Prince of Persia. I mean, the first sword fights and stuff, like they're so good, and jumping the first time you fall down the pit and all that. But when you jump through that mirror and your other self just comes out the other side of it, it's like, oh, what's happening here? Like that was great. Oh, there's some just seminal moments in that game.
Yeah.
That game, kind of a side note, that game was in another news recently. I listened to a podcast called Command Line Heroes from Red Hat. It's about programming, and anyway, they've been doing a lot of exploration of computer history lately, and their latest episodes were on floppy disks. Where did the floppy disk come from? How did it get popularized? And that part of the episode, they were talking about when they were rescuing the source code for Prince of Persia. And it's interesting, they had Jason Scott on there, Tony Diaz was on there, because they were involved in that restoration effort. I thought it was fascinating. Anyway, it's a fun listen.
Yeah, that seems. I remember that. I'm sure we talked about that back when it happened, but
I think so.
Yeah, that it is. It's a nice. It's a really sort of like dramatic story. Finding these old floppies in the the parents' house or whatever.
And then rescuing them, and I guess Tony had dragged over a bunch of equipment, specialized equipment for imaging them at like the magnetic flux level first, and then going through and stuff we talk about all the time, but I don't typically hear about that kind of thing on mainstream consumer podcasts, so it was fun hearing that on there.
Right.
Yeah, my guess is that Tony brought a bunch of stuff. I sort of vaguely remember that, like, Tony brought a bunch of contemporaneous hardware that in the end it wasn't really helpful.
That's
just
okay.
used the modern flux thing.
Just bring it all.
But, yeah. Okay, let's see. So I have the next thing is actually before I do that, was Prince of Persia that was on multiple platforms, right? Or was it? Did it get ported to other things?
It has recently been ported,
but it was Apple II first. And he also mentions in the video how he was kind of bummed that by the time it was released for the Apple II in 1989, like that was a platform that was so much on the wane that he was like it was concerning him while he was building the game too. He's like, am I building a game for a platform that's going to die? And so he says that on the Apple II it was a commercial flop, but it was all the ports that were done right after that made it work. And all those ports that were to newer platforms didn't have any of the technical challenges he had in the Apple II.
Right.
But it was interesting that the constraints of the Apple II were what sort of formed the game into what it became. Whereas if he had been making this for the Amiga from the outset, he would have had all kinds of enemies to fight. He probably would have thrown in too much. It wouldn't have been the simple pared down experience that he made. Interesting,
yeah, because I definitely played it on the Apple II, and I think early Macintosh as well.
Yeah, there was a very, very well done Mac version. It was very clean on the Color Macs, and there was like Sega Genesis, those kind of things that appeared on consoles, and I think it was reported here like a year ago that it was ported to the Commodore 64. I think within the last 9 months or something.
Yeah, there have been people working on Commodore 64 and Atari 8-bit.
Atari 8-bit, yeah. I think I've seen some test screens of the 8-bit very recently of the Atari 8-bit version.
I don't know if any of these are complete or nearly complete, but there's work being done. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty funny that he worried putting it out for the Apple II in the late 80s or 1990 or whatever was for a waning platform. But here we are in 2010. Let's release it for 2020. Let's release it for the Commodore 64.
Right.
It's on the rise.
All right. So let's see. So the thing I have, it's long, and so I haven't actually read through all of it, but it's really super interesting, and I think I'm looking forward to reading all of it, and I'll present it to you. But on Ken Sheriff's blog, he has written up. He was basically asking the question of why the sort of standard terminal size is 80 by 24.
Well, that's a great question, actually. I've wondered that myself.
Yeah. And so there's a bunch of different... What, sorry?
So why is it?
Paul doesn't know. He hasn't read it yet.
Right, exactly. Well, no, so, I mean, it's basically... There are a bunch of people who have had sort of theories about this that have to do with, like, what IBM... sort of things about, like, how memory is organized or what IBM put out, or, a lot of it is kind of centered around, I think, certain technical capabilities, like what is a natural size. And so he actually kind of goes through kind of a long sort of list of different terminals, like, the terminal was 80 by 20, the VT100 was 80 by 24, not 80 by 25. There's a lot of fuzziness about 24 versus 25. I think some of it had to do with the teletype and how wide the teletypes were. There's some idea that maybe the IBM 3270, being like a very widely adopted terminal, had something to do with this. And then he just wanders, and that's the thing that I think is like the most delightful about this is he talks about the 3270 terminal, but then talks about an earlier one, the IBM 2260. And then he starts talking about memory delay lines, and various things about the video display and the 80 by 25 that went into the IBM PC, and it's really long, full of interesting stuff. Not all of it immediately. It's not immediately evident how to connect everything in this article to the question of why are things 80 by 24, but.
That's funny. I always assumed it had something to do with manuscript format. Like when you're like the old fashioned way of typing of things was 60 characters on the line, because in a typewriter font, by 25. So manuscript format is 25 lines per page. And I always figured it was 25 because that was a thing. But I was like, why is it 80 instead of 60? It always seemed confusing to me. But I thought it was a coincidence that for decades before computers, manuscript format was 25 lines a page.
So weren't computer cards 80 columns?
Well,
I wonder if that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, we should read the article.
Yeah, so a standard 80-column IBM punch card was introduced in 1928. And so, I mean, I think basically his conclusion winds up being that there's no technical explanation for this. It really just has to do with adoption, basically, and IBM in their sort of central role in all of this.
I think that there's a link. It's a lengthy piece indeed, but I remember because I encountered this article, and I remember there was some indication. I think they were talking about the Apple II, but it was, or maybe it was a terminal that was reflecting the Apple II, but there was just enough memory because of something that they had to do that they got that extra line. So some of the terminals were 24, and then this one was 25 because it didn't quite, it had all this free memory, which of course all this being less than 1K, but and that enabled another line. So it was just interesting little anecdotes like that. If you read, I didn't read the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
no,
it was
I'll read it though.
I do remember
his
that.
blog is amazing. Everything on there is worth reading.
Yeah, well, and I think the question is really interesting, and like sort of talking through it, is pretty interesting. But what I really love about this is really just the trail he wanders down. I mean,
Right.
he keeps touching things that are, coming across things that are sort of interesting and related, and then just talks about that for a while, like how the displays were all done by pushing bits on this delay line and stuff. So anyway, we will all read it together soon.
yes.
I'll read it live to you now.
Okay. Earl, I guess you are you have the next thing, and it looks kind of short.
Yeah, just real brief. It looks like the Commodore Los Angeles Super Show, they call it the Class, was scheduled to be in late April, but one of the latest casualties of the worldwide challenge that we're facing. So they're postponing it. And we'll have a link in the show notes to the, I looked at it on Google Groups. It's out on the news groups, comp.sys.cbm is where it's at. But just a notification that they're pushing off that show, and kind of a side thought that I wouldn't be surprised if a number of the upcoming shows suffer the same fate, depending on how things go.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so do I want to talk about this? I suppose I do. I think this is interesting.
Yeah, you do.
So, I suppose we all know about, in some form or another, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. So there was the game. It appeared on many different platforms. There were many different sort of types. So there's Where in the USA, Where in the World. There were a number of these. I'm trying to remember actually what the other ones were, but and they're basically sort of like geography learning games. So you're supposed to learn facts about places and know where they are and that kind of thing. It's a sort of a kids game, and there was even a TV show. But it turned out that there was during a kind of like a period of time when North Dakota was I don't know, doing some sort of education push toward like teaching the heritage of the state in the schools. Somebody had the idea of basically commissioning a Where in North Dakota is Carmen Sandiego game. And so it's basically this same framework, but in the context of North Dakota history and things like that. And they made it, and it's impossible to find. Like I've been kind of like looking for this for quite a while because I heard that it existed. But so there's this write-up on the Video Game History Foundation's site, gamehistory.org, about this. It's written by David Craddock, and it's actually super interesting. I mean, so it sort of details going to North Dakota, talking to the people, who were sort of involved in kind of pulling this thing together. And so it's basically this was a Broderbund game, right? And so they worked with Broderbund to do this. But so not just finding a copy of it, but actually what they did was go out and actually talk to the people who made it, and look at some of the materials. I believe that it actually did go out. Like I believe the teachers actually had it, but it's amazing how it just plain does not surface. So I think the stuff that the Video Game History Foundation has is actually like the development materials. I don't know if anybody has an actual end product version. But anyway, it's actually quite a long article, and it's pretty detailed about just the whole process and what led to it, and what was involved. And I think it's pretty interesting. And so read that if you are interested. It is available on the Apple II. Recently, by 4am has tweeted, I think, at least a WAS version of it. So it's you can play it if you want to. So anyway, anyone have played it? Had anyone heard of it before this?
Nope. No. Well, not until recently. So many 4am tweets and things have been about North Dakota for some weird reason. Right. And all the amazing Apple II software.
North Dakota trending.
Yeah, exactly. It's very weirdly trended for the Apple II community. But other than that, no, I had never heard of it. Carmen Sandiego, obviously, where in time, where in America's past, where in Europe, where in all blah blah, where. Though I don't think I've ever actually played any of those games.
I have not either. I've played for maybe 6 minutes once. So,
and like that's enough.
But was it a good 6 minutes?
Yeah, well, it didn't make it to 7. So, although I did buy a couple of little handheld ones, so I could conceivably still play them. But I played that for maybe a minute. Okay, so the next piece in the show notes is the upcoming show roundup.
Actually, hang on a second. Blake added something.
Oh,
yeah, at the last minute I added one. We could save it till next time if
do it.
Where'd it go?
At the top.
Oh, okay.
Alphabetical.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. All right. Sorry. Shall I?
One last thing then before we move on to that. So, Blake, what's your
thing? It's a quick one, really. It's just it's actually a lengthy article, middling, but it's an article entitled "ASCII Art plus Permadeath: The History of Roguelike Games." And roguelike games, as many listeners are probably aware, are a certain typically text-based game spawning from a game called Rogue from actually 1980, where you are a little ASCII character. You descend a series of levels deeper into a dungeon in search of something roundabouts level 26 or 32. There's different takes on it. The original was written by Glenn Witchman and Michael Toy, and immediately there are all these different variants of it: Hack, NetHack, Moria.
Right. Yeah, Hack and NetHack are the ones that leap to mind.
Yeah. I think the first time I encountered it was actually technically the proper Rogue, as marketed at that point by Epix in 1986 for the Atari ST. It was a graphical version. Rather than ASCII, I know the Amiga version was like text characters, but graphics, little text graphics characters. There've been all kind of versions, Angband, and they've inspired a lot of modern games have roguelike elements. But anyway, it's an article that takes you from the beginning of Rogue, and actually some of the predecessors. Interestingly, they mentioned one of the earliest was something called Beneath Apple Manor, which was an Apple II game that preceded Rogue, and it brought a lot of the elements together apparently that made up Rogue before Rogue actually did. I think Rogue was much more expansive, but at any rate, it takes you through the history. I've always liked Rogue because you can play it on any platform, whether or not it has graphics. And it's a fun game. It's not too long, and it's engaging. And yeah, it's a nice walkthrough with illustrations and I think some video and different anecdotes. I mentioned, and I put it in the notes. There is the modern version, which I'm most fond of, is called Brogue, and it's actually it's I think it's rendered in graphics, but it has that old ASCII aesthetic with enhanced creatures, but it looks like you're looking at a super graphical text terminal. But it has lots of effects. The sound effects are great, and it has a lot of additional depth. And it's available for Windows, Mac, Linux, desktop, and it's in I believe it's still in the App Store on the iOS. I used to play it on my iPad all the time, and I haven't reloaded a lot of things on an iPad. I got about 9 months ago, so this reminds me to reinstall it, but. It's a good article. So if you have any interest in Rogue or games that took something away from it, then this is a good read. It's Ars Technica piece, and they always do good stuff.
It looks like fun to read, and this Brogue looks really nice. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. When you actually play it, looking at it takes all the charm and atmosphere of the old originals, but it really adds a lot of kind of psychedelic glitz to it. It's a great deal of fun. One of the games I've gotten lost in for like an hour or two deeper than most of the games I've played. Really, I highly recommend it. Yeah,
nice,
excellent.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just a sort of like a link to add there. Last year at Kansas Fest, I have what amounts to a fair amount of the development notes for Beneath Apple Manor, and so the Kansas Fest presentation that I gave last year was about that, about how I was about to make the scans available and all these things. Also, I'm just about to finish editing the previous podcast, but.
I didn't realize that. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. People have talked about Beneath Apple Manor as being like Rogue before Rogue, but
and Wizardry is Rogue after Rogue, but just different view.
And I actually have not really played it very much. So I realized when I was trying to present things about it, like I don't know the game really. I scanned the things, but I'm hoping still to get sort of into that more. But anyway, okay. So now we can turn to the upcoming show roundup, which is full of a bunch of bold notes. So let's see. Things we have mentioned before. The 29th annual Last Chicago Cocoa Fest is postponed until further notice.
Or maybe the last one was actually the last one.
It's possible.
They've been warning you for years.
Hopefully not, but it was going to be on April 18th, and it is no longer. VCF East is now in October instead of like in a couple of days. So VCF Southeast is July 12th through something, and that at this point I think has not been changed. So it's conceivable that I don't know if it's conceivable it will still happen, but it has not been. Nothing's been announced about it. Kansas Fest in July 21st has registration delayed until the end of April 30th. So it's balancing on the edge of things, I guess. VCF West August 1st to 2nd is the first one in our list that does not have a postponement or cancellation notice. So we will see. I know that a lot of the sort of probably business and academic world is shifting to trying to figure out how to do conferences like this online. So it's quite possible that we might see a little bit more by way of streamed presentations about one's virtual.
Maybe I think like that works for modern business things and stuff. Like trade shows are useless, but for something like VCF or Kansas Fest, like it's all about being there and immersed. Like I really worry that like how would something like VCF transition online and be like something worth attending?
Yeah, I think it would be. Certainly with respect to like Kansas Fest or something, I would think of this as not so much. It's not like Kansas Fest. It's just something to do when Kansas Fest would have been.
Not a replacement.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. But like long term, like Kansas Fest is Kansas Fest, man. And it'll come back, delayed or whatever. Like it's not. Things aren't permanent.
Yeah, and I agree with you there.
I don't know if this is actually true so much of these other sort of conference conventions, but Kansas Fest is like a release target for a lot of people too. So if they're doing some sort of modern project, they intend to sort of talk about it or show it at Kansas Fest, and so that's one type of thing that might still be good to have something at. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But
fingers crossed, everything settles down.
So, with our crossed fingers, it is now time for a word from our sponsor.
Okay. Virex.
I'm not sure that actually was such a good transition, but whatever.
Whatever.
We are the kings of jagged segues.
Yeah. All right. I guess there's no reason to fiddle around here. And we're back. So today's host's retrocomputing gift idea is actually Jack's retrocomputing gift idea.
There's been a coup. Jack's the new host.
So perhaps Jack can tell us about this.
Yeah, so this is a topic I mentioned earlier, was the Making of Prince of Persia, which is a book that came out about 10 years ago, but there's a new hardcover version. It's the illustrated edition. So it's still based on Jordan Mechner's notes from when he built the game, his journals, but this edition adds screenshots of what the game looked like, photos of journal pages, photos of other stuff that as he was working on it, just like stuff that was in his journal that was not in the previous version. And there's it's not out yet. It's coming out April 28th. But you can see it on Amazon. You can click on the look inside and see some of the pages and stuff. Looks very nice. It looks like, compared to just being a story, it has like all these sort of pictures of what's going on. I think it looks pretty cool.
Excellent. Yeah. Has anyone read read the book, the earlier version?
I have not.
I have not.
I'm pretty sure that I bought it, but
I'm pretty sure that you bought it too.
the problem with the time is just there isn't enough of it.
So do you know if there's an ebook equivalent?
Yes, there is, or there will be. So, but I think none of them are out just yet. It's supposed to be released in a month, on April 28th.
Excellent. So, and not it's not very expensive, and I bet it's quite interesting to read.
Right.
I've read a little bit of the Karateka one. There was another one, that preceded this one, about the sort of development of the preceding game. But,
right.
So far in this episode, we've had both pronunciations of that game.
Have we?
My vote is for yours.
Well, I just happened to I watched this video with Jordan Mechner, and he said Karateka.
Yeah, no, because he's right. But we all know that
people also. I knew people in the '80s who would also pronounce karate. No, it's karate. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we had, when I was doing for Touch Arcade, I interviewed Mechner for the iOS version, and he said Karateka. So pointing out that there's no emphasis on any syllable, but I always said, and I still say Karateka.
Yeah. So, well, I think we sort of grew up with that, but
soft G.
Okay, let's see. So now we can move on to our eBay auctions. If you still have money left over after the book that you bought, or pre-ordered, I suppose. So Blake, you have the first set.
Okay, let's see. So it looks like so interestingly, I've got just a few items here. This one caught my eye just because I'd never seen it before anywhere, and I am actually, I've tracked the Amiga for years. I have several in this room, and I remember the Commodore PC and what its mice look like, but it's the original Commodore big-eyed mouse, new, never used.
It is a big-eyed mouse.
They speak of it as if it's a renowned thing. I've never encountered this big-eye mouse, and I don't have any idea what it's about. I wondered if anyone had seen it, or
nope.
It looks to me that connector. What kind of connector is that? Is it it's not an Amiga connector, and it's not a. It may be some sort of proprietary PC. It's bigger than a PS2. I don't know. I just wondered if anybody.
Or could that be like an old Mac mouse connector?
A Commodore mouse?
Look like that?
Like an ADB type thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that.
It's ADB-ish to me, but it's hard to be
But why would Commodore make it? Yeah, that's how, I don't know why they would. Some of the before the PS2 became a standard, like back when the PC had a connector, frankly, the PC keyboard connector used to look like that. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of proprietary, like I think there was the quote bus mouse, and then there were some video cards that had weird circular mini DIN mouse connectors.
Yeah, like ADB is what mini DIN 4, so it's
I don't know.
These 3 other mini DINs.
So no one, I guess, it sounds like no one else has seen this before.
Nope. That's a weird looking mouse.
Yeah. It's although it says new, never used, but then condition is used.
Because why would one?
And yeah,
Never used.
What are you going to use it with?
Never used effectively.
$79, $8.85 shipping to me in Northern Virginia. Yeah, it's a curious thing. If it was like $5, I'd buy it. It's just because
it's a little pricey for something that's odd. But I noticed under the item specifics it says brand Microsoft. Just adds to the mystery.
Yeah, it's the new, never used mouse from Microsoft, labeled Commodore with an ADB connector.
Well, Microsoft made BASIC for everybody. I guess they also made mice.
Yeah,
I think that's probably just a template error.
Probably.
Are we sure that's not a PS2 connector?
I'm not sure of anything.
It looks a little big to me, but I guess I'm not positive. We don't
also,
have
there's no banana.
Yeah, it could. You're right, Earl. It could be PS2. It feels to me like it's too big, but I don't know. But then again, that would make the mouse pretty big, wouldn't it? Maybe it is PS2.
Yeah, maybe it's just a big mouse.
That's true.
Two big old buttons.
Kind of gigantic.
I wonder if you can get a.
Oh wait, well, the second shot has a.
Oh, maybe it's not a big-eyed mouse. It's a big-eyed mouse, and so it's just a big mouse with eyes.
Yeah. It does. When you look,
hyphens.
It looks kind of like an ADB connector, but it can't possibly be an ADB connector.
Maybe it's a Commodore mouse by Microsoft that's designed to connect to a Mac.
That's probably the best guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that.
That is the most possible explanation.
But I'm not going to.
Back when you could, like when you bought, maybe even, I guess maybe it's even still true, but like when you got an Apple II or whatever, they would give you a little sticker, and then people would put those stickers on their disk boxes, and then people later on, when they inherit this from their deceased relative, put this on eBay as an Apple disk box. And I wonder if that's what we're seeing here. Someone has a Commodore sticker that they put on a mouse.
Oh no, I found it actually on Zimmers.net, one of the Commodore information sites, and it is a PS2 mouse.
Okay,
you're right. Maybe I know Commodore had like the PC-10. They had some PC clones. Maybe they said we want to make a big statement with our mouse.
With a big mouse,
distinctive.
So
Fashion statement.
We need to come out running. So here it is.
Come out from the gate with this thing.
They lost big time on that one.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting mouse, but yeah. All right. Well, thanks for solving that, Earl. All right, well, I'll move on to the next thing. So this, I just was hoping that some of the people that have spent more years with Macs than I have could point out basically how one would use this. It looks like at first glance, it looks like a SIM module, but on closer inspection, it has 4 large square sockets with square chips in them, and it says GG Labs 2 megabyte Mac SIM. Mac SE32SI 2FX Flash ROM SIM 64-pin Apple ROM disk. So apparently, and the descriptive text indicates it's a Flash ROM 2 meg SIM for the SE32SI 2FX. It says this SIM can hold a Mac ROM plus a 1.5 meg bootable ROM disk. So does anyone know, is this basically it sounds like you flash a copy of the Mac's ROM and whatever else you want on it and then stick it in. What, did these Macs have their ROM on a SIM stick?
Some Macs did around that era. I don't know 100% that the SE30 did, but absolutely
I didn't think
there
the
were.
SE30 did, yeah.
I didn't think so either. But they could use ROM disks, definitely. So maybe this instead just goes into RAM and then has a thing that overwrites part of the ROM or something.
But there wasn't, it's not as though there were like a ROM disk socket on the board, right? That wasn't a common thing, surely, or was there a socket for that? I see the picture shows it next. Clearly there's a bank of RAM SIM slots, and here's this one slot alone. The only Mac I had from this era was like the LC, and I don't remember any ROM disk business with that.
Because the SE30 definitely, I remember there was ROM patches for it.
Yeah.
The 2CI and the 2CX, I think, had ROM on boards. Okay. And the SE30 has a 2CI or 2CX motherboard, isn't it? Like basically the same? I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't recall either. But
well, no, the SI had the SI, which is like the worst Mac ever, has a SE30 board. they're the same computer basically. One is one of the all-time greats, and one is the all-time worst, and the worst replaced the great one. It's some weird thing like that. So I'm going to say a hard maybe.
Yeah. Well,
those at home, scream into your headphones.
Yeah. Sounds like you can, I guess, boot basically a floppy size
a boot.
Yeah, a boot. So it's $49
in the
comments.
What's that? I was going to say, Bill in the comments just was hypothesizing that it's an early solid state drive, but it is ROM. So, and I think actually Mac Classic, or there's some 9-inch Mac that has a boot disk in it. That like it can actually boot into Mac.
I think the Classic does. The Classic is one of the ones where you can just turn it on and it's got a bootable thing built in.
Yeah. So it might be that might be the kind of thing you would use this for, but I don't think it's if it's a solid state drive, it's it's one that you can't write to.
Yeah, maybe so. I had never seen anything like this for the Mac, so that's why
it's a PLA.
Yeah, I'm sure.
As far as I know.
Commodore 64, but it's yours. There's 4 available. It's for $49, and it is was it free shipping to me anyway in Northern Virginia.
Cool.
Yep. So let's see. The last thing I have. What is it? Okay. Well, yeah. I just mentioned this kind of a personal connection sort of thing. It's there's a game that everyone seems to love. Everyone's heard of it. It is Boulder Dash, and I think Boulder Dash is. I don't know where it originated. Actually, I don't know what platform it originated on. But what I didn't realize, I guess, this is a package that says Vintage Super Boulder Dash, Atari 48K64K. It's an unopened floppy disk, and it's a EA release from Electronic Arts back when they were good. And it has the album, the LP style, the classic LP style.
Yeah, like to me, those are the classic EA releases. Just those big albums.
Yeah. The albums are great. The albums are great. Can a computer make you cry? That whole ad campaign, that whole time frame.
Yep.
But anyway, so I didn't realize that EA put out Super Boulder Dash. Did they put out the original Boulder Dash? I'm not sure. But I guess somehow I never realized that Boulder Dash was a commercial game. Like I see this, it seemed like it was everywhere and every platform. Like I've run across it and clones of it everywhere, but I didn't know it was actually like a stamped branded thing. And
because everyone just copied it.
Well, yeah, there's that. But here's evidence with the box, and I guess I'm guessing most of you were aware that it was commercial and that there were boxes and that kind of thing. Is that right?
I think Boulder Dash wasn't EA. I thought Super Boulder Dash was, and Boulder Dash was like, I'm going to guess Microfun, one of those weird things.
It's quite old, I think, right?
Yeah.
And
I feel like the original was
vague memory.
Yeah, but it was some smaller.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Okay, yeah.
I knew that it was an actual commercial game. Okay. I'm sure I never bought it, but like.
Oh yeah, Moby Game says Boulder Dash Microfun. Go Carrington. Look at that.
That was nice.
Yeah, it was
good call.
Scanning the back to try to see, but no credits there.
Yeah, I don't. And the thing is, for me, I actually don't like the game. Like I've never liked all the different platforms. Like there's a clone. I think someone just made one for like the Pico 8, and then there's modern Amiga clones. I just don't like. I don't like Boulder Dash personally, so I've always avoided.
You don't like it, Boulder Dash? I say.
I certainly wouldn't have bought it, but anyway, yeah. So there's my ignorance. I just was putting it up there to see if that surprised anybody else. But
I remember playing the original Boulder Dash on the Atari 8-bits, and I liked it. Okay, I wasn't super pumped about it, but it was a game that I enjoyed somewhat. Okay. But I've never actually. My enjoyment of it was never such that I have ever played one of the modern remakes or clones or anything.
Yeah, I can't. I wish I could. Yeah, I wish I could remember the name. There's a Boulder Dash clone for the Amiga that came up in some podcast a few months ago, and I thought, well, no one's ever heard of this. The graphics were pretty lame, but apparently it's one of the most popular Amiga games ever released because it was this perfect version. Like it added, and I again would have been excited, but Boulder Dash. So take a look at that. But anyway, but that's all I got. It's 40. If you're interested in this particular Atari 48K or 64K package, it's $40 unopened with $2.80 shipping to me in Northern Virginia, and they apparently have 10 available. So he's sitting on a pile of. I'm guessing this guy's probably selling a number of other opened items. But
cool. So. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I've played Super Boulder Dash, but I kind of liked it, the original one. I would play that.
I wasn't a huge fan.
I would occasionally, even in the modern day when I was looking for something to play, I would pick up that.
Okay. Well, it's everywhere.
No accounting for taste, I suppose. Okay.
Okay, my turn. I'm going to switch us over to a game that I do think is great and totally amazing. My first choice is there's a copy of Serpentine for the Apple II. This is one of the great Apple II pick up and play games. I totally adore this game. This was a game that apparently came packaged. I wouldn't have known that as a child. I had this game, but holy cow, I definitely never saw this package when I was young. But you get it for $75. It's still sealed. And that's not an outrageous price, as the game is very collectible and it doesn't come up a lot as a sealed copy. So if you want to release the 80s era and turn your Serpentine package into being worth less than it is, it doesn't ship to Canada. I would buy it anyway because I'm all digital. But this is a great game. If you never played Serpentine for the Apple II, I highly recommend it. It's basically Snake, but it's a great version of Snake, like a truly, truly great version of Snake for the Apple II. So that is my first choice. Have you guys all played this before? Did you all know this game? Did anybody of you actually pay for it? Did anybody pay for this game?
I never paid for it, but it was one of my favorites on the Apple II, definitely.
I loved it.
I'm not sure I've even played it.
Oh, highly recommend it. Really good.
I looked up a video just now, and I recognize the look of it. I've seen video of it, but I don't think I've actually played it.
It's great. It is a truly spectacular Apple II game. So love it.
I think the timing and when the different little sound effects trigger and the pace, there's something that's just perfect that makes it much, much better than your typical Snake clone. It just feels right. Yeah.
Shockingly good for a Snake game. Anyway, love it. That's my first choice. Second choice, which I think maybe I can just switch right to. Yeah, I can't. Okay. It's like, Chrome, you disappoint me. Okay, switching over to our second link. It is No Man's Sky for the Tandy Coco, also called Rescue on Fractalus. I like this game a lot. I didn't actually know it was a Coco game, so this surprises me that it's for the Tandy Coco. And it is No Man's Sky, but for vintage computers. So Coco 3, so after my Coco time. But also sealed. I like a sealed game. $45 seems reasonable for a sealed game to me. So you could buy this and play No Man's Sky for the Coco for $45. Have any of you played Rescue on Fractalus other than Blake?
Oh, I've played it a lot.
Yeah.
Blake's not allowed to. It just so happens that I'm right now wearing my Rescue on Fractalus t-shirt.
Oh my goodness!
Oh wow! Look at that.
That's fantastic.
Lord,
that is amazing.
I should have made you large, but anyway.
Yes. And in charge. This originally sold for $29.95. There's still a sticker on it, so it's gone up in price. It was a good investment. If this person sells it,
apparently,
good ROI.
Good ROI. They're making 50% of their money, so pretty good. So that's my second choice. Both are just good games in sealed copies, and I like a good sealed copy. And neither of them have the shrink wrap that seems to be destroying the box. So, and not unreasonable prices for both.
And we lost Carrington.
Oops.
Okay.
He got too excited. Yeah. Like clicked himself out of the.
Yeah, I wonder if he's still in any of our documents. Carrington.
He's still in the show doc. Looks like. Interesting.
Okay, so yeah, maybe he really just, instead of clicking to the next tab, he actually just closed to StreamYard.
Yes.
I wonder if he knows that maybe he thinks he's still there.
Yeah, maybe he's looking at a different window.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know how to ping him exactly. But I've not played. I've probably started Rescue on Fractalus on the Apple II. Bill in the chat said that he did.
Yeah, on the Atari 8-bit at least, it was great. I mean, that was the original platform it came out on, and it was really, really good. And I've seen actually people have taken a machine where they have swapped out the 6502 for a 65816, or whatever it's called, and the one that runs way faster. and suddenly it can render all those mountains at a much higher frame rate. It's pretty cool.
When you just like close the wrong tab. Oh, StreamYard, I should keep you in your own window.
Yep.
So, I'm back. While I was gone, did anybody purchase it?
No.
Maybe I'd come back and it's already sold. I didn't think you guys would drop $2,000 for it.
Okay. But well, we haven't even heard about it yet. So.
Did I close it right away? Okay, so this is the for $2,000. What I think is a particularly lovely Apple IIe. I don't think that it's worth. You got to share screen. Okay, I don't think it's necessarily $2,000, but it is a 2E with a duo disc and a color monitor 100, which is a great monitor. It's the one you're not supposed to push on because you'll break it because it's like motorized. But it is a RGB. Fantastic and rare and expensive monitor. It's got the duo disc, which I totally adore. So this is like an iconic Apple IIe setup. It's a beautiful, clean, working system. It's lovely. But can you justify dropping $2,000 on an Apple IIe? I cannot. But we might have some listeners who got a ton of money and good taste, and here's where they meet. It'll take your money and appreciate your taste. So it's $2,000, but it is a classic, beautiful, clean, perfect setup. So if you're a collector and you got bank, this is a nice one. It's just hard to justify because of the cost.
Well, I would call it out, but you see there's a make offer button, right?
Mm-hmm. Offer $3,000.
Yeah.
And that's an RGB monitor, and it has so it has to have an RGB card inside. So it
does, and it's working, right? Exactly. So it's not that this is crazily overpriced, but it's still $2,000 for an Apple II, and that's it's a lot of money. Just saying, it's a lot of money, but it's beautiful. Like it's
in very good shape.
It's a great shape. Like this is like a no compromise one, but you're certainly buying yourself a high end Tesla of Apple II. It's still an Apple II. Like it's still an Apple II, and for $2,000 US.
I remember the public library of the town I grew up had one computer in the public area, and it was an Apple II with this monitor.
Wow!
And I remember I used to go. They wouldn't. You had to do 6 months of training or something before they'd let you touch it. But I'd sneak over and press the motorized tilt button because it was so sexy. Yeah.
I think they were worried somebody's going to come up and just push on it like the tilt normal Apple II monitor and bust it. Thing. Because the normal green screen tilt monitor is also a great monitor. I had that as a kid. I love that monitor. That is a crystal clear, amazing, perfect, if you just want a green monitor. But this is the RGB one. Like this is the monitor, and they go for a ton. But it's a lot of money for $2,000.
The motorized thing is very cool. The thing is so heavy. This is a super heavy monitor, but it's so heavy that let's see if I can have the thing open here. There's a button that you press that it'll just sort of oscillate the screen up and down.
Yep. They have to do that because it's just like, you can't lift this. Anyway, it's great. It's a great monitor. I love the duo disc. I think they have a reliability issue. Some people say that, but I had one as a kid and I love them. And I think they're a beautiful look. So I really like them. It's just, this to me is an iconic Apple II setup, and I loved it. It's just, and it's clean, it's beautiful, but it's $2,000. Like, oh my gosh. So, And then my third choice is something really fun and really interesting and really retro. I've shared the display, and this is a Proxima Data Display Multi-Mode 2. There's a name. Sony must have helped them name this thing. So these are great. This is an LCD screen that, what do you do with it? It's a see-through LCD screen. So imagine you've got a monitor that has no back, because the whole point is you lay this down on top of a projector. So if you've got an old-fashioned not slide projector, but those...
like an overhead.
An overhead projector, but you put this on the overhead projector and it projects up through it, and then it shows on the screen. I love these things. These are great. I think it's terrific. So this is one of those in a box. All the cables, looks new. It's telling you that it weighs 7.5 pounds. It's a heavy item, and it's all still wrapped up. So I suspect it's a new one. It is $67. Like, this seems like a good price for one of these things. It's only $25 shipping to me, so it seems, given the weight of this thing, the fact that you can ship it to Canada for $25, this seemed like a good deal. So if you want one of these things, it's not shown to be working, but I think it's new. I don't think this is going to come. You're going to get one of these much cheaper than $67 US. So I dig it. Oh, it says 4 parts are not working. Oh,
they probably just don't want to guarantee it.
Right. Because, still all cables still sealed in plastic. It doesn't see the remote control. Anyway, it looks 720 by 480 resolution, works with an Apple II GS and Macintoshes and stuff. Like, this would be really cool to use at Kansas Fest. Hook up an Apple II GS to this thing and just like there's a lot to like here for $67. So that was my second choice. Plus that name, that catchy, rolls off the tongue name, Proxima Data Display Multimode 2. Like data display is 2 words, but multimode is 1 word with a capital M in the middle of it. Just, oh, it's great. This was a company that knew what they were doing.
Excellent.
That's my choice. Paul should buy this. Use it at Kansas Fest whenever that happens.
Yeah, I think when I was thinking about these, like it does seem like as soon as you connect it, you're going to remember about like how much nicer things have gotten since.
Yep.
But I do have. I don't know if I have a color one. I think I have a monochrome one somewhere that I've.
But still, if you want a bigger monitor, you could hook this one up and just put it on your desk in front of you, turned backwards, and put a flashlight behind it and just project it on the wall and get a big monitor for your Apple II. Yeah, come on, cool. It's great. That's a terrific way to do computing. No downsides.
Yes.
So those are my choices.
Excellent.
Cool.
Earl, what do you have?
Give me just a second to share my screen.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you've got it up there.
I've got it up until then.
So that's perfect.
Okay.
Paul's on it.
Yeah, he is, man. That guy. So what's my eBay choice this time is a compiler. It's for the Apple II GS. It's from the Orca series of languages, which, as I understand it, were really popular on the Apple II. There's a whole family of languages. This one compiles the classic integer basic.
Wait, integer basic, but for the 2GS?
Yeah.
Runs on the 2GS. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Weird.
Well, I guess you're using the 2GS to compile it, but to run it on earlier targets?
No, I think you run it on the 2GS also.
I don't even understand this.
So that was Woz's basic.
But does that even run on the 2GS? Do you have integer? I don't understand this. Why would you use integer basic on a GS?
Because you can compile it. So you compile
be really fast and have no division.
I think it gets compiled to like machine code.
Yeah, I think it looks like they explain the whole thing in that paragraph there. That's on.
I can't read.
I can't read that, but
don't you make me read.
Well, they do explain it on this one page that they show on the eBay auction from the manual. And some interesting things about it. One is it isn't exactly a standalone product. You can't use it unless you've got some of the other Orca family of language products because it works in conjunction with them. One of the things that I thought was the most interesting is that they include the source code for the compiler, which you can use, I think, for a couple of reasons that they talk about. One would be that you could change it if you want to add some of your own commands or do some of your own things. And secondly, I think it'd be a great educational tool to learn how compilers work.
Oh, or if you've taken a programming degree, you remember having to do compilers, and it's gonna trigger me.
Yeah, the compiler course in my computer degree was one of the hardest.
Yeah, totally. For me, it was the total butt kicking experience.
Did you use the Dragon
book
I
ever had
in your course, Carrington?
Yes, yeah.
The Sethi Aho, and I can't remember the other author, but yeah, very popular book. Anyway, yeah, compilers. So having the source code for a compiler would be fun. And this is $29, so I don't think it's an unreasonable price. I just thought it was an interesting pick. And it is fascinating that it's integer basic, but for the Apple II GS. So it's like as far opposite as you can get on the Apple II continuum of computers.
It's actually a pretty funny image on the cover too, because it's got like a GS and a GS monitor, but it's strapped to like buggy wheels, and a dude with like, so I guess like take your 2GS back in time with integer basic. Like, so they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
I like it. I did not know this existed. The Orca stuff I knew, but I did not know this. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's sort of a compiler suite. So there's Pascal, and there's I think the C and some other things, and
they're available online. You can purchase them, or they're like there's a whole set, right? You can get through
Syndicom.
Syndicom, yes. I think that's available as a thing. I think I won it at Kansas Fest. I got the Orca collection, like for winning a door thing or whatever.
Oh yeah,
that was my choice. Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
because you can only have so many ROM cards for the Apple II.
Right. Particularly if you're running emulator only.
Yeah, exactly. My needs are small.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. Oh yeah, people would still use integer basic even. Well, I mean, it was increasingly difficult, I suppose, but integer basic, as you might imagine, doesn't do floating point math, so it's actually faster. So if you want a fast basic program, integer basic is actually a pretty good choice. It's just that it's not by default available on any of the newer machines. You have to kind of load it into language space. But newer machines, I say newer.
Those newfangled machines.
Okay, let me get started on my little list here. The first one is ended, but I think it's an interesting thing. So I don't know if people knew about the existence of this, but it is a 2-drive, 3.5-inch floppy for the Apple. It was only a prototype, this was never made. It's basically just 2 Unidiscs on top of each other. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah, would have been kind of cool. Somehow, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what it is that kept it from leaving the prototype stage, but it's basically it's the better. I think it's the high density one. And anyway, so there are only a few of these around. This particular one just sold for just a little over 2,000.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
For that, you could have bought that whole Apple II with the fancy monitor.
That's right.
Which I would rather have. But if you already got that,
yeah,
you've got all the things, and this is just one more of the things.
Your next
collect all the things.
Goes to this.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that people sort of know about in the collecting world. There are a few of them, but
yeah, I saw one of these, I think, at Kansas Fest once. Probably Tony or somebody brought the Lyron disc.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Tony has or had one at least. And Blake said you put a little link in the show notes. Did you have a prior picture of this?
Yeah, I just put a link in both sets of notes. There's a Frog Design had the people who did a lot of the certain period of Apple's design work had a display. As I recall, it was. I don't have the screen. There it is. The screen sharing ability. Yeah, they did a historical display at their Frog Design location a few years ago, like 5 years ago, and one of the items that they displayed was that drive, and it's pictured in the collection of shots that I got for that event.
And weirdly, of those shots, that collection of shots, it is the least beautiful and least interesting thing. But you look at these other photos, like, oh my gosh, that is some beautiful, beautiful stuff.
I really like that. I don't know what it was, like some sort of pro type, modular thing. I guess you can see my cursor, so I can see that I'm clicking on it. What happens if I go? Do I get to a flicker?
Well, the people listening can't see your cursor.
No.
Yeah.
I guess those listening at home, his cursor is wiggling.
Yeah. This is what we're showing is a gallery. Clicking through on the image that we were talking about, it's a gallery of all the images that I was able to get a hold of from that event. So I'm sure we can do a link to the gallery.
Sure. Oh yeah.
I still love a lot of early Mac industrial design, particularly from the Frog period. But even more than that, Frog prototypes just make my heart ache for the things I would like to have.
Yeah, there's that amazing book called, it's just a white book called, I believe it's called Apple Design. Does anybody else have that book? I don't. I have it at my office, which means I'm not going to see it for several weeks, but I can't grab it off the shelf. But it's just full of like hundreds of pages of color photographs of prototypes. It's been out of print for a couple of decades, but Apple Design, if ever you see one, grab it.
I think I might have. I'll look behind.
It's all white with a little faded, like a fuzzy Apple logo in the corner or something. But it's quite nice. And there's a lot of historical, like text describing what was happening. So. Yeah,
I think the book that I'm thinking of that I have is not that one, but I think I do. Anyway, I'll find it once this is over. But okay. Anyway, so you cannot buy this prototype because it is sold. But
and it was so much money you probably wouldn't have anyway. So it's all good.
Okay. The next one is, so this is a kit thing. It is a Apple IIe dual 6522 GPIO PCB, and so basically what it is so I think you have to supply your own 6522s here, and you put them in. They are some kind of like serial IO, sort of, I don't know what you call them, but they're sort of taking care of the serial IO for you. If you plug this into a slot, it gives you basically a general purpose IO pin row that you can then connect up with various things that interface with those in these sort of modern, Arduino worlds. So it's sort of a kit that you can get. So soldering is required. You must know how to do this. You have to provide your own 6522 chips. But if you're interested in trying to kind of like, connect in some way your modern microcontroller thing, or even maybe a Raspberry Pi to this is like one piece, the Apple II piece that you need.
So you think it like memory maps in ROM space or something like that for your I/O? What I feel like it would do, like, you read and write certain memory addresses up in the ROM space, and then you could read or write the contents of those I/O pins.
Yeah, I am fairly sure that is going to be how it works. I didn't actually look into it, but there is a GitLab, discussion of this, which probably will tell you how the programming works.
I gotta say, the sentence "it memory maps in ROM space" sounds like something out of like a Gibson novel. Like it's something Johnny Mnemonic would say or whatever, and it's supposed to be like sounds real, but it's totally gibberish. It memory maps in ROM space, man.
Right. Yeah. Well, somehow you would need to be able to read and write to those pins, but.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you guys are Apple II guys, so when you put an expansion card in the Apple II, then do those slots map into the high memory space? I don't know how that works.
It's possible for cards to sort of I think they can sort of take control of certain areas of space. So that's how like RAM cards work. You turn them on, and then they intercept basically all the requests to a certain area of RAM and deliver their own contents instead. And I think each card has some really small, like one page of memory available to it for like a firmware. So that's where like the basic boot code goes and stuff like that. Anyway, that was interesting. Cool. If you're interested in that kind of a project, this might be of interest. It's $18, so it's practically nothing. There are 5 available. This is kind of cool. A clear case Apple IIc. Clear cases are all the rage.
Clear cases are all the rage. I haven't seen a 2C. I've seen the 2E or the regular 2s clear, but I've yet to see a 2C clear.
Yep.
Is this
the keyboards all should be clear? I'm getting
case?
triggered by the keyboards that you can't see through that. It's bugging me.
Yeah. Oh, the keys themselves. Yeah.
I want the keys. I want the actual key to be. I want everything to be see through. In fact, I just sent me like Emperor's new 2C. It'll be empty, and that's what I'm looking for. I want to be able to just see my desk and have nothing there.
Yeah.
The Wonder Woman Apple
Pretty
II.
wild.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, is this old school clear case, or is this a new kind of?
It is.
Case?
It's a one-off.
Retro brighting gone wrong. They put too much retro bright, and you actually like make it clear.
I left this
Turns
in the
out.
sun way too long.
You leave it on, it's just like, oh no, I left it overnight.
Yeah, this is not a prototype. This was made later, as I understand it. So it's.
Oh, do that side shot on the monitor again. That is so cool.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is awesome.
Yeah, it is really nice.
Listeners, you can't see this, but what we're looking at is the side of one of the smaller Apple II monitors, and you can see some of the metal shielding in here.
Well, John and Josh and Bill G, they can see it.
They can see it. They can see it right now.
Exactly. That's what you get when you join in live.
I know. Yeah. Right. Membership has its privileges. Oh, the back is even cooler.
Yeah, but privilege is plural, but okay.
Yeah, it is. I would really like having this, but so I think it's. I don't think this is a project. This isn't like the Kickstarters or whatever, where they're they're looking to make a bunch of these. I think this is basically just someone made one.
How much?
How much?
$1,800.
Excellent.
But there's a make offer.
There's a make offer.
You and your make offer.
25 smackaroos.
Yeah, but what is a smackaroo to dollar conversion at the moment? Things are in flux.
Dollar's pretty strong right now.
Yeah, not the Canadian dollar, man. Oil down, Canadian dollar down. You U.S. people with your fancy dollars.
Oh, what is the book? This is the person who's selling this made a book fairly recently. I have it, and I normally would be able to remember his name, but it was sort of like a timeline. It was sort of a timeline of all Apple products. He sort of taught himself photography to do the book. There was a special edition there was an extra special edition that actually came in a book sleeve that was sort of shaped like a Apple IIe.
Apple IIe. Yeah. Okay.
Shrine of Apple. It's the person behind the Shrine of Apple site. But at any rate,
I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one selling this thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, all right. What else do I have? Oh,
yeah, Paul, what do you got?
Not a whole lot to say about this, but it is a Lisa 2 bezel.
It's 10% of a Lisa.
Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of cool because it's in the box. So and the box has a little bit of water damage, and like the label ripped off part of it, and it's kind of squished.
But imagine you were 3D printing a Lisa 2 for yourself, and you started at the back, and then you ran out right before it was finished. Yep. This would help you complete that project.
That's right.
It's a niche target, but
that is so weird. That happened to me last week.
There you go. Here's the thing to complete it.
This is part of the kit that you could apply to your Lisa to reduce its future value by $100,000.
Yeah, I think so. I believe that might well be.
Turn it from a Lisa to a Lisa 2. Yeah.
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 The thing that always kind of bothered me about the Lisa 2 is that I'm not sure it actually says Lisa on it anywhere. I mean, there's a sticker underneath maybe that says Lisa, but like the Lisa 1 at least said Lisa on it.
Not on the front.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess if you've cracked yours, these are, if you've played around with these at all, they're actually kind of flimsy. I mean, like it's not super sturdy, and they're old, brittle plastic now. So I could see where you might actually even want it just for the bezel if you've cracked yours, but still $500. So, all right, this one I thought was kind of iffy. It's a fully operational Apple One computer, engineered to work in a classic homebrew case. And you look at the picture; it's got a little, one of those little security monitors, and it's got kind of like a wooden case with an Apple II Plus keyboard, I guess, cassette and stuff. Looks pretty homebrew. There's a plastic window through which you can see an Apple One board. Yeah,
okay, so how do we know what kit this is or whatever? It's not a actual Apple One.
I don't know. Actually, it doesn't actually even say. It just says perfect copy of the original with cassette board. So it seems to me like it took a lot of like reading of, I would say fine print, but this is actually huge print. But nevertheless, it's kind of buried there that it is anything but an actual Apple One. Original sold for $80,000.
Well, to buy it now for $6,000. Actually, it's pretty funny that it's $666. Like that's a fun little pun. But I think just the buy it now, $6,600 is kind of the big giveaway.
Well, sure, yeah.
So it seems a little high, actually. I mean, because you can get those kits. I mean, you can put one together for well under $1,000, I think. Well,
but you also know that it's not
well
under original Apple II.
Not well under.
Well under
or Apple One,
probably. Yeah, I think the there's a number of people who've made replica boards, Apple One boards. I have one of them that I think was Newton Computers or something, and it was possible at least at one point to just sort of like buy a package of the parts from I think it might be called Unicorn Electronics, something like that. they sort of like they had a kit basically for everything but the board that you could put together. And of course, there was a time when I thought, oh, it'll be fun to just find the parts myself. And now I have most of the parts, and it probably costs a lot more.
I think a small handful of the parts got really hard to find. There was one of the folks at the Seattle Retrocomputing Society who had painstakingly, he had one of the replica boards that was an exact replica, and he'd gone to the work to find all original components for it. And he said it took him a long time and it was quite expensive.
Right.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, it's kind of cool to get original parts, but I mean, to the extent that you can get newer ones, they might be less likely to just like spontaneously combust.
That's true.
But I mean, even some of these things don't exist in modern versions. I mean, like the only way you could get this is an old one. So I forget what I think I have many of these parts. I don't have that heat sink. And some other stuff, but I haven't even begun thinking about putting it together. So anyway, I thought this was just a mildly suspicious auction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the last one is just kind of a cool thing. It is an extenda slot. So do you for some reason all my things are like Apple II only today, but
what's extenda slot?
So has anyone seen one of these before?
Nope.
I remember ads for them, for these in the switch boxes, but I remember, I don't know if it was this one, but I remember, in the back of a magazine, Insider or something like that.
Yeah, it probably was this one. It was probably an ad like this.
So does this let you have the card outside of the Apple II?
Yeah, exactly. So you plug it in. It's just an extension cord. You plug it in to a slot on the Apple II, and then it creates for you a socket, slot socket outside. So here it says it's perfect for, essentially having all the cards you always need inside and the ones you don't always need outside. So you can sort of switch them in and out.
So here's the hilarious thing. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, why in the world would you want to do that? And then I realize if you combine that with your previous auction for that GPIO board, that would be a really good reason to have the board out of the Apple II so that you could connect it up with your Arduino and other stuff.
Right. Yeah.
True.
I think that back in I remember, and you see them on eBay coming across now occasionally, and you'd see them very rarely in the back of magazines long ago, but there would be, prototype Apple II breadboards. So, if you were going to try to wire together something you were working on, this would make it, you'd almost have to have something like this or build one yourself.
Right.
So I'm guessing that was, because the company that sold this in the ad you showed, like right next to it in the magazine, they also made this thing that I saw more frequently, which was called Switch-a-Slot. And that was basically the one end of this cable, but instead of coming out to a slot, it goes into a box that has 4 slots, and you just switch it, and you can picture the copper brush action happening as you rotate that thing, praying for contact. I can't even imagine. But,
make sure to do it with the power on, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so you can tell if it worked.
Yeah, the sparks will it lights up when it works. But,
right.
Yeah, but yeah, very nifty.
Yeah, I don't think I'd heard of the thing. It's true. I've seen these switch slots, actually quite rarely on eBay. I've seen maybe 2 on eBay in the whole time I've been looking. But
I knew a guy that had one, and I knew he had a TUI without a cover because he switched the card so often that he bought one of these things, and I thought it was cool. This is way back a long time ago, but I think I just saw so many ads for the Switch-a-Slot in the magazines, but not so much this Extend-a-Slot.
Yeah. And the other thing that's here, the paddle at Apple, which is a similar thing. It's basically like it externalizes the place that you plug in the joystick or game controllers. Those were everywhere. I mean, like half of the
totally.
Apple IIs that you find on eBay have one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is it for my eBay auctions. So that will bring us back to normal. Well,
that's normal.
I say.
How disappointing.
Okay, so that's good. So I think we can now move on to the closing discussions portion of the show. Carrington, you have a screen to share. Should I share
I do
screen?
indeed. If everybody's stuck at home and bored and doesn't know what to do, somebody recently uploaded to the Internet Archive Make It with Punch Cards, book from 1971 on crafts you can do with punch cards. So things like making a lampshade. Here you go. So you can do a pleated lampshade from IBM punch cards. So it's a whole big old book of various things you can do, crafts you can make out of punch cards, and I think it's delightful. So if you're stuck at home with nothing to do, but you do have internet access and a bunch of punch cards, here's days of entertainment and crafting. And I think somebody at the next Kansas Fest should host a crafting time. I can see Melissa Barron doing something like this. And it's like having like 5,000 punch cards to say, let's make lamps. Let's make things from our punch cards. So you can make various things to hang and display all out of punch cards. And I love it. Absolutely delightful. 1971 book. Look at this, a tissue roll cover with a little doll face out of punch cards. Great. 1971 book, upload to the Internet Archive, and it brings me all sorts of delight. And that's what I think you should do with your punch cards.
This is so cool. How did you find this?
Somebody on Reddit was saying, hey, I just uploaded a book called Make It with Punch Cards. I'm like, what is Make It with Punch Cards? Yeah, it's just great. It's so 1970s. It's like right from the era of macrame, but it's punch cards. So I love it. But I particularly love the fact that there are lampshades you can make. The lampshade just brings me great joy. So Make It with Punch Cards, 1971 book. I love it. That's what you should do.
Yeah, and it has a sort of at least it seems like a flavor of mockery of like the past tech now obsolete, right?
Yeah, you know what? Yes, absolutely.
So you could imagine something like this, like make it out of floppy disks.
Yep.
Now.
Mm-hmm. You can almost smell fondue boiling looking at this thing.
Actually, I can't. Right behind me, my fondue is bubbling. So that's what I got to share. Make It with Punch Cards, I say.
Sweet. Excellent. All right.
Super.
Blake, any sort of closing thoughts?
I don't have any items to share. I just, it's been a while at home here. Looks like it's going to be quite a few more whiles up ahead. So I've been actually taking breaks. Like, it's been nice at lunch to have some of the older machines, again, get on the BBSs and IRC in between bouts of those little pesky bouts of work that happen here and there during the day. So, it's I've been enjoying the cabin fever, the necessary cabin fever therapy of some of the retro computers. So that's just doing this and that I often don't have time or the co-location to do. So
yeah,
nice,
excellent. Earl, how are things?
Well, sorry again about my audio. I'm recording in a different spot in the house today. We're shifting some things around because my daughter's home from university. Of course, everything's closing and, doing remote learning and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we're playing a little bit of musical chairs. I actually, I'm kind of transitioning from one job to another. And so it's a little dicey right now because my onboarding is going to be weird because everything's shut down. So not exactly sure whether that's going to get delayed or what's going to happen. But if it comes to work from home, mostly I think 11 out of the last 13 years, I've been work from home anyway. So that's not any kind of a culture shift. That'll be straightforward once I can get set up for it. So just, cool. Staying here, keeping safe, keeping busy.
Yeah. Excellent. Jack.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing. There's a new TV show called Devs, which is.
I've heard about that. Is that good?
It's pretty good. I've seen the first couple episodes. It's like a sci-fi thriller sort of thing about this tech company. Nick Offerman plays the founder of this company, and he is not funny. It's a not comedic role at all, which is unusual for him. But there's a scene where they go into his office, and standing on one side of the office is very clearly a Commodore PET computer.
Oh, nice.
I love it already.
The implication that he's
I might watch it in spite of that.
He's a retro enthusiast of some kind.
Nice.
Or he's just old.
Just old, yeah.
I like to call myself a retro enthusiast, but let's face it.
Old and confused.
Exactly. So, I'll take it.
Cool. Yeah, I've been I've been planning to watch it, but I haven't hasn't quite made it to the top of the list yet.
What network is it on?
Here in Sweden, it's on HBO Nordic, but that could be.
Okay, I'll tune into HBO Nordic.
Yeah.
Okay.
They pull in stuff here that could be that isn't necessarily on HBO in the US. It could be from anywhere. So unsure. It's something. It's on something.
Right.
It's on a TV channel.
It's on one of them their TV channels.
Yeah, I've been sort of. Actually, I just finished. I just ran out. We've been kind of addicted to this. It's a game show basically, sort of called Richard Osman's House of Games. It's a British thing where they basically just ask puzzle questions of celebrities, and it's really hard to stop watching that.
Okay, good. I like a British panel show and game show, so I'll check that out.
Yeah, so Series 3, which I just finished, has 100 episodes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That seems daunting.
Yeah. But
especially from the country that normally gives us 6-episode series.
Yeah.
What's up with you, Richard?
I think it's daily. It's a daily show. So anyway, but I would recommend that. The thing I put as far as like the closing notes, so I work in academia. I teach in the university, and so that's been a pretty sudden shift. That's actually has something to do with why we're recording an episode without the previous one being on the feed yet. But so suddenly I'm an online teaching expert, just like everybody else. And so it's a total mess for anyone in college at the moment. I mean, I think across the country, probably across the world, people are being sort of like kicked out to go somewhere. Earl's house, I guess.
Among others.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure actually how much retro stuff I'll wind up being able to do. It's I can get to my office. But there's not meetings or anything there anymore. So I'm probably not likely to be in the context of my retrocomputing stuff very soon. But anyway, the thing I stuck one more thing in the closing discussions section. I'll quickly mention it. It is there was a post. I'll put it on the screen here.
Apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's just another retrocomputing thing that I didn't have a place to put. But it was a interesting little thread that was basically talking about somebody who went back to the EDASM, which is the first editor assembler. It's the one that the Apple, sort of, distributed for the Apple II, and it's basically just a sort of simple assembler, assembly to machine language. And the post is actually really quite interesting. It's long, and like all long things that I talk about in this episode, I haven't read it all. But it's really it's very involved and really kind of interesting, and it's posted on the Retrocomputing forum. So it has not only the original post, but then quite a lot of discussions after it.
Nice. That's a good place for this. Cool.
Yeah, and so in fact, actually, the thing I wanted to one of the things that made me want to bring that up is that there's a Retrocomputing forum.
Had we not talked about that?
I don't know if we have. It is basically the successor to a Google Plus group. When they shut down Google Plus, this was started from that. So it's not super old. I mean, it was basically just a place where people landed, and I have not been keeping up with it. I get periodic email summaries from them because I have some sort of feed set up.
Totally missed it. I thought this was the forum that we've talked about in every episode forever.
No, this is a different.
This is a whole new thing. And
so if you are stuck home, there's a ton of stuff to read here. Like I intend to do a lot of stuff. My future topics may well be drawn from things on this.
Look at this. Hey, Blake, I don't need your tweets anymore. Look at all this new stuff I can talk about on the show. Take that, Blake.
This is pretty nifty.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I sort of feel like it's apart from the people who are on it and contributing all the time, it's a little bit under the radar. But go check it out because it shouldn't be. So.
And it has a bunch of activity. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Excellent. Hey, you kind of reminded me there, Paul, to also give a shout out to Kevin Savitz. First, so for superstitious reasons that I can say his name on the episode. And secondly, because I dumped about 2 metric book tons of VAX VMS manuals on him, which he so kindly offered to scan. So just, a public shout out in gratitude for that. I talked about it on an earlier episode. I saw you tweeted about that, Paul. And as it turned out, due to my job transition, I no longer had access to a document feed scanner. So I was thinking, wow, what am I going to do with these? I mean, they're holding down my house, but what else am I going to do with them? So Kevin said, yeah, I'll do it. So I was like, you demand. So I took it all over, and yep.
Nice.
It's in better hands now.
Cool.
That's cool. And better decorated nails.
Exactly.
He does rock the good nails.
Yeah, in fact, I when I was looking through eBay auctions, I did briefly look to see if there was any large collection of deck manuals that I could suggest to you, Earl.
So that I could replenish my collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that, Paul.
All right. So it looks like we've been recording for a million years again, but it's been fun. We're all trapped at home. But I think I will close us off here and say that's it for this show. You can find show notes for this and all the RCR shows at rcrpodcast.com. You can discuss the show in the forums at vcfed.org/forum/forum.php, or maybe on the Retrocomputing forum, although we don't have any actual presence there. But I think we will maybe all soon look there. You can follow RCR on Twitter at RCR Podcast. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/RCR Podcast. You can send feedback to feedback@rcrpodcast.com. We are a member of the Throwback Network at throwbackreviews.com. And you please write a review on iTunes if you want. And until next time,
Retrocompute.
All right.
We did it.
I just signed up to that forum.
Excellent.
I am about to.
Yeah,
I should mention in the comments, we were talking about before about people should tune in and watch. And Bill G said, we're audio worth watching.
Yep.
Thank you, Bill. I think that is an excellent quote.
Great comment.
That is so good. I'm like, that's the perfect way to put that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we pick our next topic?
Yes, we should.
Okay.
What will it be?
Do we want to do that
Do
accelerator
you have a topic for us?
Yeah, we can do the accelerator one, or the coprocessor one, or the whatever one.
Yeah, I think that might.
Could do that.
I like it.
We can revert to that at least.
Do that.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, guys, for those who are watching on the YouTube thing.
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
And now I will end the broadcast.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.